supports that, we think of all three of these circles together, kind of interchangeably. And again, traditionally, when we work with customers and IT departments, most of the focus has been historically on the boardroom and information workers, and we really want to make sure that we're building a foundation in Teams to support all three of those pillars. And so today's session, we're going to talk about first-line worker experiences that we've built into Teams. A lot of what you'll see today and a lot of what I'll show are core experiences into Teams, but we really tried to bring a lot of great mobile experiences in that we think will be suited and help support the mobile workers in your environment. So there's a couple challenges, different challenges that these first-line workers face in your organization. And probably the biggest one, and the one we hear from the most when we work with companies in this space, is that these first-line workers generally feel disconnected from not only the team that they work with, but the company as a whole. Some of these people end up, kind of working in jobs where they're sort of on their own all day. They might be out in field locations, in vehicles, driving around from location to location. It might be a single individual working in one part of a warehouse where maybe they don't interact with other people in different parts of the warehouse. These may be retail workers working for you in a store, and they may be the only person working in that particular store. But when you think about it, if you're a retailer and you've got hundreds or thousands of stores all operating at the same time, they're actually part of a really big team, but traditionally they had no way to sort of be able to communicate with that broader team. And so we wanted to make sure that we built some features and teams that are going to be able to support that. Another area that this first-line worker group tends to feel is that they're a little bit behind on training efforts that you might be doing from an organization perspective, best practices from your organization, different policies and procedures that you're trying to share with all of your employees and all of your staff. Maybe think of HR policies, processes around expense reporting, around travel, different things like that. And these folks tend to feel very disconnected because there's no way organizationally to be able to reach them and help support them in their job. The third one that we hear a lot of is that these folks tend to use outdated and obsolete tools and maybe a lot of manual processes. In today's day of age of everything going digital, manual processes are so time consuming. They're fraught with errors and mistakes. One of the customers that I work with has actually deployed Teams into one of their manufacturing facilities, and they've leveraged not only Teams but Office Forms to automate and update what used to be a manual and time-consuming process, and they've moved it all into Teams and automated it from a digital perspective. So Teams can help enable that, and we'll show some of those features later today. They also feel that they're slow to receive information, resources, expertise from other parts of the business. So they're not only interacting with other first-line workers, but they might need support from our IT. They might need support from HR. They might need support from finance. And traditionally, it was very difficult for them to be able to get in touch with those people. So not only are we building a tool that allows them to do their first-line work, it allows them to interact with the rest of their organization really well. And then the last one that I think is probably one of the most important ones is around sort of uneven security practices and policies and security governance that applies to a lot of these users. And traditionally, these folks, because they weren't given better tools, found ways to do their job and found ways to communicate amongst each other that probably don't match to your existing security policies and procedures. And one of the big ones that we see with a lot of customers is users using consumer-grade chat products that they use to communicate about work and things that are going on at work, updates throughout their day. And while that's great and it's a way for them to communicate, what happens when one or two or more of those individuals that's in those group chats and those consumer applications leave the company? A lot of times your information, your IP, your knowledge, your stock information, things like that could be leaving with those people when they leave. And because they stay in those chats and they're left in them, they're still getting those updates and that information unless someone manually removed them from the chat. So again, we wanted to make sure we covered that area off in Teams. So when you think of, kind of our all-up design philosophy around the first line experience in Teams, we really wanted to make an experience that was simple and simple for people to start with. We wanted something that wouldn't overwhelm your users, but we also wanted them to be able to work the way that they want and communicate with the people that they need to communicate with and get timely information at the right time. And so our focus today in this presentation will be around the mobile experience, the Teams mobile experience specifically for Firstline. There's no reason why your Firstline workers can't use the full-blown Teams desktop client or Teams web client, but this kind of really curated, really simplified user experience that we're going to walk you through today is mostly focused on the mobile experience. And so in order to do this, we wanted to give IT a way to really be able to curate this experience for your users out of the box. And the way that we did that was through a policy in Microsoft Teams that we refer to as an app setup policy. And what this allows you to do from an IT perspective is create a simple policy, apply it to your first-line workers, and have that policy basically control which applications are visible to the user when they log into the Teams mobile client for the first time, as well as the order of those applications. Your users are able to pick and choose and change the order around if they like, or add or remove applications that they've been granted, but you're able to basically start them from a really simplified perspective. And I'm not going to cover how to configure this in the admin center, the Teams admin center, but it's pretty basic. It's pretty easy to understand. You go into the Teams admin center under setup policies, and you can create this app setup policy for your users. You can apply it to a broad set of users if you wanted to in your organization, or you can apply it to an individual user by user basis, which is more likely what you would do. You can also automate that through PowerShell if you'd like to as well. You're not forced to do it through the admin center. So I wanted to show 4 kind of key pillars, and then I'm going to jump into a demo. So this is, I promise, the last slide that I'll show you. But when I go through the demo and I go through the different components that I'm going to show you, think of the Teams, mobile and first line experience from the perspective of these 4 key pillars. So the first one is really about communication, and that communication could be text-based communication, it could be chat communication, it could be calling, or in the example here that's shown on the screen, it could sometimes be fun images, it could be like signals, it could be hearts, it could be smiley faces, emoticons that people can send back and forth. So there's a number of different ways that people can communicate. So for example, I could send one of my employees a message and say, were you able to clean up that problem in aisle 3 today? And all they have to do is simply click the message and hit a like, and I then know that they've communicated that back to me. And that could be done through either a one-to-one chat, a one-to-many chat, or even a group communication in a channel within a team. So again, there's a number of different ways that we can communicate, and I'll show some of the new features that we've added into Teams that are specifically focused on Firstline there. The second pillar is access to training material and documentation. This is a huge one in that I can simply upload files into a team from my desktop client or even from my mobile client if I wanted to, and I can make those files available to team members that are in my teams, and specifically ones who really have only a mobile-only experience. So in this case, if I wanted to read about the upcoming healthcare workshop, I could just simply click on that PDF. It would launch in a inline session in Microsoft Teams. It would show me the file. I would never need to leave Teams. I don't need to have an additional application installed, and I can go ahead and catch up on that training and documentation that's being shared. The third pillar is what we call access to industry applications. So you could develop an application within your environment that you want to use to have people interact with, and you could deploy that application to your Teams mobile experience and your first-line workers. So the example that we've shown here is a crew bot that we built with one of our airline customers. And so you could have that bot interact with the crew that are on your airline, and that bot could do one of many different things. So that example that I gave you before, my customer in manufacturing that automated their shop floor quality process, you could build that into an application. So rather than having to walk around with pen and paper, I can now walk around with my application on my mobile device within Teams, interact with it, send my data up, send pictures, send text, whatever I wanted to do, and that would all be from my Teams experience. And then the last area that I wanted to cover was around scheduling. And this is what we call our shifts experience in Microsoft Teams. And I'll spend a bit of time in my demo covering this off. This isn't something that you have to use for your first-line workers to take advantage of Teams. You can access all the other three pillars that I talked about. But if you do have groups of people today that are doing scheduling in a manual, paper-based, or some other process that they're using in a different application, you can move that scheduling experience into Microsoft Teams, and we'll show that coming up. So I'm going to take a small pause, and we're going to move off to the demo. Bill, before I do that, are there any questions from the audience at this point? Awesome. All right, I am going to just quickly get access to my mobile device here. Give me 2 seconds. Connecting. So what I wanted to show you, so I'll kind of orient you here a little bit in terms of what you're looking at. So I've got my mobile device here. It is running my Teams client, and I'm going to start you with the worker experience. And we're going to start with what the kind of default worker experience would look like when I first log into Microsoft Teams. So as you can see here on the bottom of this Teams mobile client, we've set up one of the app setup policies that I talked about earlier, and I've deployed that to this user. His name is her name is Megan, and so Megan signed into her Teams mobile client, and we've given her an app setup policy that allows her access to the Shifts app, the Activity app, and the Chat app. And that's the default experience that she sees when she comes in. So she has a very kind of simplified and curated experience. If she wanted to change that experience, she could. So she simply just swipes up from the bottom, and she can see all the other different applications that are available to her in Microsoft Teams. And if she wanted to change that, she could click on Edit, and she could change the navigation of those, add or remove applications, and do whatever she wanted. But for now, we'll focus on the default experience that we have for Megan. So what you can see here, this is our Activity app within Microsoft Teams, and you'll see things that are very similar to what you may have seen in your regular Teams mobile application. So for example, here there was a missed call notification from someone trying to call me. So again, if I was a first-line worker and I was using Teams for my mobile client, someone could try and call me on Teams. This particular user, Megan, we've actually assigned PSTN or public switch telephone network number to her, so someone could try and call her from a desk phone or another mobile device if they wanted to, and that call would reach her here in Teams as well. So again, it's not just about chat, it's not just about shifts, it's about all those communication experiences that you would want potentially for your users. So Alex here, or Megan here in her activity feed can see that there's some shift requests that have been applied. But before we dig into that too much, I'm going to move over to the chat application. And what you can see here is what we call our simplified chat and channel experience. And so what we've done is we've combined the chat experience together with the channel experience in one consolidated view. So Megan doesn't have to switch back and forth between the chat app and the Teams app. And so we've taken the teams and channels that she's a member of. So she's a member of 2 teams. She's in the store portal, as well as she works in the Vancouver downtown office. And she's got a couple of channels in her Vancouver downtown team, and she's got 1 channel in the store portal. So if I wanted to go into the associate readiness channel, I could click in there and I can see all the past messages that have been sent. Or just as easily, I could click into a chat that I have going with Alex. So whether I'm in the chat experience or I'm in the channel experience, there's actually a number of great new features that we've included into Microsoft Teams to really help increase the interactiveness of that chat experience. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start a new chat. with someone in my environment called Grady. And as you can see, when I open up that new chat with Grady, I don't have any existing messages with Grady. But what I can do is there's a couple of really great features that we've deployed into the Teams mobile experience. And so the first one is the ability to share your location right from within the Teams application. We use this a lot within the group of people that I work with. We were actually at a team offsite about a month ago. There was about 10 of us in town. We were staying at different hotels. We had different meetings with folks during the day, getting together at night. And so we were using the share location information to let each other know where we were. So all you have to do is click on location. And that goes out and it searches and it can find out where you are. So I can see right now where I am physically. So I could choose to select this location, or alternatively, I could actually just search for any location, and it does a map search. So if I wanted to share with my team where we're going for dinner tomorrow night, I could say we're going to go to the Shortcut restaurant. It grabs that information, finds the location, I hit select, and it then shares that location into this chat that I had with Grady. That right now I'm showing you is a one-to-one chat. That could be a one-to-many chat, but I could also do that same thing in my general channel. So I could start a new message, and I can go in here and I can share my location. And in this case, I'll share the actual location that I'm in. So if you got a keen eye, you can see what city I'm in. So you can see that location. And again, I can share that whether I'm in a chat message or in a team channel. So that's a really great way for your folks to interact. Imagine that you've got someone who is a delivery person, right? So they're trying to deliver an order. It's time sensitive. They're trying to figure out where they are. They can't find a location. They're unable to find their way around. They could say, ask for some help from a coworker. They could ask for help from a manager. Say, hey, where am I supposed to go? I could search for the location and send that information to them. Another great feature is actually the ability to annotate and share images directly from within the Teams client. So I can click on the image button here, and I can go ahead and I can say, I'm going to take a new photo. I'm going to turn around and I'm going to say, I'm in this room right now, and we've got a problem with this whiteboard. There's some sort of a situation, a maintenance situation. So I can take that photo and right natively from within my Teams client, I can actually just annotate right on that image and say, this is the area of concern. Can we please have someone, perhaps open a maintenance ticket or support ticket to come and resolve this particular issue. So again, all from within Teams, built natively into the client, no additional applications required. I can, send and annotate on those photos. And again, really great way for people to interact. And I'm just going to switch briefly off to what this looks like in the full Teams client experience. So imagine now I've switched to my manager persona. So my manager in this case, his name is Alex, and Alex has access to those same channels that Megan's in, and he can not only see the location that she just shared from her mobile client, but he can also see this graphic image right here in terms of what needs to be done. I have a customer of mine that works in the retail space, and they have buyers that go out and they go to trade shows. They go to different, vendors that they work with, and they're constantly buying new materials to bring into their stores. And they were telling me that one of the great uses that they have in Teams is this photo opportunity. So not so much the annotation side, but the ability to go and take photos, share them with the rest of their team in real time has been a real boost for them, and one of the key reasons why they've wanted to use Teams. So one other feature that we have that I wanted to show is the ability to do a voice recording natively into the Teams client. This was a huge feature ask that we had from a lot of our customers. It's a popular feature in some of the consumer chat apps that are out there, and it was a really big one that we wanted to bring into Microsoft Teams. So again, to be able to do that, all I do is I can just, I can be in an existing conversation and hit reply, or in this case, I can start a new conversation and say, team memo for the day. So imagine that if I was, someone, and I was trying to share some information with my team, and I didn't have, I didn't really want to type it all out. It was, a lot of a long message. I can actually just go in here And where is, oops, all right. And so I can go in here and click on recording, and I basically hold that recording button down, and it's taking my voice being recorded through my mobile device. It's taking it and attaching it as a file and sharing it into that team conversation. So again, I'm posting that message. That message would be available for anyone who's following that team in their Teams client on the mobile side. Or again, if I just show you the experience here on the desktop client side, I have an inline player. I don't have to go download the file. I don't have to do anything else with it. I can just inline play it. I can listen to that message. And again, that applies across all the platforms, the mobile platform and the desktop platform. Really great way to be able to communicate when you're in the field. Maybe you're in a spot where it's so cold you can't even really type, or you have something where you can't interact, you don't really have the time or ability to type. It's a great way to be able to interact. So then one other experience that I wanted to show you is the meeting experience. So I'm just going to quickly show you this. So I should have this ready to go. I'm just going to schedule a quick meeting here with Megan. So imagine if I wanted to have kind of a team meeting with my mobile workers. I could just schedule a team meeting. I'm going to invite Megan. I'm going to set it for this time. I'm going to go ahead and get schedule. I'm going to join that meeting on the full desktop client, just because I want to kind of show you what that experience looks like. So Alex is going to join into that team meeting, and at this point he's the only one that's in there. And then I'm going to show you the mobile experience. So Megan, although she doesn't have meetings pinned, she can if she wanted to, and if she had a calendar on here, that meeting would show up in her calendar. But we can just go to that meeting experience, and I can now see that I've got this team meeting. I can just click to join. Megan can actually now join the meeting from her mobile client. Let's see, she's joining. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually flip back to what the desktop users see. So Megan has joined the meeting from the Teams mobile client, and we've actually delivered a lot of great features for Firstline workers to use in the mobile experience. So the first thing that she can do, she can actually share her video into that meeting as a piece of content. So again, that room that I showed you that I was in before, I can now be showing you that meeting, not just as my video camera, as a feed into the meeting. It's now a full-blown piece of content into the meeting. So imagine that if I was in a location and I was working with someone and we were trying to, maybe troubleshoot and brainstorm a problem, I could do that right here, and I could be saying, oh, have I now fixed this problem that you flagged for me before? Yeah, that problem's now fixed. And so I can bring people into that meeting experience and show it right directly from my mobile client. So really good experience there. I can also, from that same meeting, I can actually share, and I can share a file into that meeting if I wanted to. I'm not going to show you that right now. We are bringing the ability to share the mobile screen into this meeting as well. It's not available just yet in the Teams mobile client that I have access to right here, but it's definitely something that you'll be able to get eventually down the road. Okay, so I'm going to disconnect from that meeting experience. That was kind of what I wanted to show you from the mobile Firstline experience. Again, we try to keep things as simple as possible while allowing users to communicate to people that they wanted to communicate with. So in addition to the chat and collaboration features that I just showed you, the ability to share video in a meeting, we could also deploy third-party or applications into Teams. And so you could do that. You could deploy an application in here. It could be pinned along the bottom, and your users could interact with that application directly from within Teams. So I'm going to shift gears a little bit, but before we do that, I'm going to check in with Bill to see if there are any questions from the audience. Bill, do you have anything? All right, great. So now we're gonna shift, pun intended, to the Shifts experience in Microsoft Teams. And so before I show you what this looks like from the user or worker perspective, I actually want to show what it looks like from the manager perspective. So again, Alex is the manager of this team. And to get into shifts, Alex just goes and clicks into the shifts application, and that takes him into the shifts schedule experience for the team that he is the team owner of. And so the way that this is tied together is for every team in Microsoft Teams, you have the ability to create a corresponding schedule that maps to that team. Today, it's a one-to-one mapping between teams and schedules, but if you had different groups within your same team that you wanted to categorize, you could do that through what we call schedule groups. And in this example here, I've got a single schedule group that I've called my floor staff group. I could create an additional group if I wanted to and put different people in there. So if I had, say, floor staff and I had warehouse staff, I could create different groupings, and I'm allowed to do that within this single schedule. And so this is the scheduling interface. If any of you out there that are watching are familiar with Staff Hub, that was a service that we offered in Office 365. And this experience should look very familiar to you if you are using Staff Hub today. And those scheduling experiences are going to be moving from Staff Hub and moving into Teams as the shifts experience. So we pulled all the great features that we had in Staff Hub. We've pulled them into Teams. So what I've got here is I've got all my users that are a member of the team, and then I've got different shifts that I've created and assigned to those people. So if I wanted to create a new shift, it's just as simple as hitting the ellipse here, and I could add a shift. I can name it whatever I wanted to. I could give it a certain time during the day, and then I could assign it to those users that are in my team. And so what you see here, I've kind of, to save some time, I've pre-populated a number of shifts for different people. I've got these color-coded just for me so that it's kind of visually helps me to understand. I know that all my blue shifts are my back group. I've got all my purple shifts are my front group or my front role that I'm scheduling for. And then I've scheduled and assigned those different tasks to different users and move them around. If I wanted to move those to different people, I could move those shifts around. I could edit the shift if I wanted to. So if I wanted to change the time of the shift, I could do that. If I wanted to add a specific note to the shift, I can do that. And so you can see that here. My mouse there for a second. You can see that here on one of the shifts that I've created for Grady on Wednesday. I've created a shift called back, and it's from 8 till 5. But I've also added this note. And what's nice about these shift notes is these shift notes pull automatically into the shifts application that your user will experience. So when your user opens up this shift, they'll not only see the time that they're scheduled to work, they'll see the shift name, but they'll also see any notes, or I could even add specific activities that I wanted them to work on during this shift. So in addition to having shift notes, I also have this concept of day notes. So let's say that my Vancouver downtown store, there is a big event today downtown. Please give more travel time. Right? So if I was the manager and I wanted to share some information with my folks that were going to be working, I could do that across the entire day. So anyone who has a shift in that day will see that day note, and then they would have all these individual shift notes that can be applied to them. So one thing that you may or may not have noticed is when I made changes to these, the changes have now been italicized, and we put a little star next to them to let you know what changes have been made. We also do that up here with the share with team. So what we didn't want was we didn't want all these shift changes that as you're working on the schedule, we didn't want people to be constantly getting updates. So we basically made it so that you can work on your schedule, you can work on your shifts, get it set, and when you're ready to publish it, then you can go ahead and you can click share with team. So what's nice about this is you can actually work ahead a couple of days, a couple of weeks, a couple of months for that matter of fact. If you wanted to, you can work on those in advance, get them kind of set up, and then tweak them, and then share them with your staff at the time that you actually want to share them. So right now I'm looking at the day or the week view, sorry, so I can see all my shifts for a particular week. I could also go to day view if I wanted to. So if I had a more complicated setup, I could go to day view, and I've defaulted to Sunday the 5th, but I could also change this over to look at today, and I could see, in this kind of, I don't know if you want to call this a Gantt chart or time chart during the day, I can see how these different shifts slide around during the day and how they're assigned to different people. So I can go back to my week view. I also have the ability to go to month view as well, and so I can look and I can see these shifts kind of across the month. And as you'll see, as I'm moving through these different views, we're actually adding up the hours that have been scheduled for each of these different individual users over here on the left-hand side. So you don't have to go and export this and do some math to understand, the number of different hours and things like that people have been scheduled. You can see that graphically in this one month view or even week view. So if I go back to the week view, I can see that for this particular week, Grady has 36 hours, Megan has 36 hours, and Joni only has 27 hours. So maybe I would want to make some kind of a change to the schedule to account for that. Bill, any questions in the queue before I continue? Great. So if I had this schedule and it was set up and I liked this schedule, and this schedule was kind of consistent that I would use, week over week, I actually had the ability to copy that schedule. So to do that, I just click on this copy schedule button here. And what that does is that brings up a mechanism that allows me to choose which date ranges I want to copy from and which date ranges I want to copy to. So I'm going to choose to copy from the 5th to the 11th. And then I'll click out of that and I'll go on to the to side and I say I want to copy that to the 12th to the 18th. So I'll close that. And then I get to choose which features of that schedule that I've created that I want to copy forward to that date. So maybe shift notes doesn't make sense, or activities or different open shifts. I get to pick and choose basically what I want. So for now, I'm just going to copy over everything. And so if I jump through to that next week, you can see that those schedule settings that I copied over have been set, but they're not been published. So I can see they're all in italics. They all have stars, and then I could, manipulate them. So if I wanted to take this shift away from Grady, I could take it and I could just move it to open shifts. And then if I wanted to assign it down to Joni, I could assign that open shift to Joni and I could move it down to her. And then once I'm done, I could go ahead and publish that if I wanted to. But I'm going to just jump back to this view right here. Just checking to make sure that I got everything that I wanted to cover off. Yeah, I think that's good. That's what I wanted to show you guys. So now we're going to switch gears and we're going to go from that manager experience. Now I'm going to go back to the individual user's experience and what they would see. So first off, I'm going to jump back to that activity tab, and you'll actually see that Megan, in this case, has gotten a notice that says Alex has published a new work schedule. So I can now see that there's been an update to my work schedule, and maybe I should go and figure out what that update is. So when I click on that, it takes me to my current shifts experience. So it's jumped me over to the shifts here, and I can see those shifts that I have been assigned to me. So I'm actually just realizing that my day and shift notes that I set for Wednesday aren't going to work because it's already Thursday. So I'm going to set one here. I'm going to set a shift note here. Shift note. Let's save. And then I can just share that back with the whole team. Share. Sorry, folks. All right. And now Joni gets another notification. And when that shift updates in her client, I should be able to go in and look at it. Now I can see I've got not only day notes, but I've got shift notes set as well. So I could go ahead and figure out, what I should be doing on that particular day. If I wanted to know, for example, who else was working with me, I could click on that button in the upper right-hand corner that shows me who else is working that particular day. I can see on Friday that that's Joni that she's working in. I could click on Joni and I could see some organizational information about her. What's her email address? I could click to email her if I wanted to. I could see her phone number. But more importantly, I could start a chat with her. So it really allows you to understand who you're kind of working with and who's around you, and then brings that kind of hop-in point directly to be able to communicate with that person. So I'm going to go back here to my experience. So not only can I use the Shifts application on Teams Mobile to view and understand the shifts that I'm in and be able to figure out who I could communicate with, I can also use it to make changes to my schedule. So let's say, for example, on Friday, I wanted to swap my shifts with, we'll call it Grady. I wanted to swap my shift with Grady, and I wanted to give Grady a specific reason. And I go back here. Whoops. What happened there? So I go back here and I hit send. And then you'll see that I have a pending request for that shift request to go to Grady. I can't show you the other side of that. I don't have Grady signed into an application, but Grady would basically get an alert in his Teams mobile client that said Megan would like to swap this shift with you, and what the reason is. If Grady approved it, I would then see that Grady's response was logged here saying that he had accepted, and I would then also see that it was sitting at pending for the manager. So to back out of that, I'm just going to cancel that request and go ahead and hit close. Okay, so one thing that I do want to show you, kind of the flow end to end. There were some additional shifts that I didn't really call out before that are available for request. So Joni in this case has said, I don't really want that Friday shift that I have. I actually want to go ahead and grab this other shift. So Joni could say, look, I want to request that shift. So now I can see that same shift request, and I can see that it's pending the manager response. And now when I go back over here to the manager view, I can see that there's one request sitting there for that particular shift. So I can go ahead and I can approve. I probably shouldn't approve it because Megan's already got a shift assigned. But let's say that I'm just going to go ahead and approve it. Okay, so Megan now actually has 2 shifts assigned. And if we go back to Megan's application, you see there very quickly that request has been seen by Alex. So I don't know if you guys caught that, but it showed right here that it was seen by Alex, and then it was then approved by Alex. So not only as the employee do I know that someone's seen my request, I can then get in real time information that request has been approved. So not only do I see that reflected in my schedule, but I also see that Alex has approved my open shift. So no longer do I need to go in and fill out some piece of paper, send in an email, call my manager. I can basically make those requests right from within the application. So it's a really great way to allow your employees to interact on a simplified experience that they're using for other communications today, and allow it to interact with their shift schedules. We don't have it available today, but we are building some connectors that will allow you to interface the shifts scheduling experience that I showed on the manager side with third-party applications that you might be using for we call human capital management, or HMC. So we're building those connectors in the background, and those are going to be coming available in the near term here. So you'd be able to pull information out of some other system that you have and have it pre-populate your schedule, and then your end users are really interfacing with the Teams shifts experience to view that. If they wanted, they can still use it to swap shifts, to request changes, to do all that, and then that would then flow back to your third-party system. So there's a couple other features that are coming that aren't available right today. The first one, and one that you'll actually see in this screen experience, is what we call the clock in, clock out feature. So not only will I be able to come in here and see the shifts that I have, I'll have a button right here that I can use to clock in to my particular shift, and then I can choose to clock out as well. And then at the end of the week, the manager has the ability to see all of that data. And again, we're building connectors vectors to be able to allow you to funnel that data into whatever you want to be your set record of information for that work experience, and how long people worked. So that's coming. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to interweave. So if I'm Megan here right now, let's say I work in both the Vancouver downtown store and I work in the Vancouver West store. Today that experience would actually be, I'd have to change my team schedule here and swap back and forth. We are bringing an experience into Teams where basically we mesh those two schedules together in some way. And that's coming out here in the near term as well. And then lastly, a big one that's coming out is tasks integration. So we're going to have task experience. So you can set up and assign tasks from within the Teams desktop application, assign those to your Firstline workers, and they would be able to interact with them in their mobile client. That one's a little further down the road, but it's coming out as well. Everything else that I showed you today is available for you to go and use. You can set it up in your tenants. You can start to trial it. You can do proof of concepts. You can get your workers working not only in shifts today, but all the other great mobile client experiences that I showed. So that's all that I have. Bill, are there any questions? And then maybe if you want, you can show the video.